After getting my CDL, I had no clue how much my life was going to change. Um, I've been trucking for 8 years now, and it's been the best decision I ever made in my life. Um, when I got the idea to go and get my CDL, I had just been fired from my warehouse job that I was at for 4 years. It was the job I got right out of high school. Um, at the time, I had just signed a lease for an apartment. I had a 4-month-old kid, and I had been married for 2 months. So all this stuff had just happened, and then I got fired. So it was a really rough spot for me and my family. But I figured I'd take that opportunity to go chase my dreams. I've always loved trucks. I always wanted to be in trucks. So I went to the truck driving school that I was going to attend, and they showed me how I could get financing for the classes. Um, the classes were $5,000, so they recommended me to this workshop that I could do that would give me a grant to go and get my CDLs. So the workshop, it was just a 3-day thing. I don't even remember what you had to do, but I just know it was a 3-day thing. Um, then I started truck driving school. It was 2 weeks of classroom. Um, it was 1 week of practicing the maneuvers, the backing up, the 90-degree alley dock, the offset parking where you start up here and then you go like this and end up down here, and then just a straight back. So you had a week of that, and then you had 1 week out on the road. So in total, it was about 200 hours worth of training. But yeah, so I spent the whole month doing that, and then I went and took my test, passed it the first time. And then from there, it was the rest is history. I went from making $12.31 an hour at the warehouse job, only getting about 8 to 10 hours a day. I went from that to making $18 an hour at the first trucking job that I got, and I was working anywhere from 10 to 12 to 14 hours a day. So I made a big jump in income just from getting my CDLs. I didn't have to pay back what they paid for the school because it was a grant. It was a state issued grant, so I didn't have to pay it back. So I didn't start at a mega carrier because my dad worked somewhere where they had semis, and he had been working there for over 20 years at that point. And so he was able to get me in there. It was a local place in downtown Cleveland. But I didn't do just semi-truck driving. I did box truck work. I was in a minivan delivering envelopes to corporate buildings. I was in the little warehouse that they had, unloading trucks, breaking pallets down, creating orders for other places, or for other minivan drivers to take to other places. I did do some semi work in the beginning, and then towards the end of my stint there, I was on a route that I was doing that was a semi truckload every day. But I was there for about 8 months. Then at that point, when you got 8 months experience, there's a whole bunch of places that open up for you to go to, because a lot of places starting out, they want you to have at least 3 or 6 or even 12 months experience. But after I left there, I went to work for the food company called Cisco. Well, the reason I left the first place is because they asked me to get the hazmat endorsement. Well, I told them that, if I'm going to get this hazmat endorsement, I want to be paid a little bit more. I want a little bit of a pay increase for that. But they wouldn't do it, so I ended up getting the hazmat certification, but then they didn't pay me. They didn't raise my pay. So I left, and then I went to work at Cisco, where I was delivering packages of food to a bunch of different restaurants. That was probably the hardest I've ever worked in my life, and I was only there for 3 months. I ended up losing 30 pounds in 3 months working at that place. That's how rough it was. Because you're unloading upwards of 1,000 or more cases a day, and it all goes on a dolly, and then it all gets wheeled into each restaurant you go to, and sometimes you'll have 15, 20, 25 different stops a day. The pay there was $22.50. Then it was time and a half after 40. And then it was double pay after, I believe, 60 hours. So I actually made a lot of money there because I was working a lot of hours. I was running out my 70 every week. But I ended up getting fired from there, which is the only trucking company I've ever been fired from. And that was because the boss called and I answered it. And they have a very strict no cell phone policy at that place. And the only reason I answered it was because I had just left Cisco and I had just got done talking to that guy. So I thought that maybe, I forgot something. He forgot to tell me something, or he needed to give me something, or whatever. So that's why I answered it. But he didn't very much like it. So that happened on a Thursday. They waited until the end of my day on Friday to call me and fire me when I got home, which is pretty crazy, but it is what it is. I wouldn't have lasted very long there. That place has an extremely high turnover rate, and I can see why. So from there, I went to a place called EnviroServe. They're a hazardous waste company. That was local as well. I did do some over the road, like regional stuff, just out one day and back. But for the most part, it was local. We hauled a bunch of. I was in the drum division, so I did a lot of 55-gallon drums and IBC totes. There was one stop for that company where we had to load up. It was like 96 55-gallon drums into a 53-foot trailer, and they weren't on pallets. So you had to take this drum wheeler dolly thing and pick up every single drum, and they were full. And you had to bring them up a ramp to get onto the dock level to get them inside the truck. And there was 96 of them, and it took like 2 hours to load, and that was once a week, every week. And what was crazy was where we delivered them was just to a landfill. So we backed up. We didn't get the luxury of if you ever been to a landfill, they have this thing called a tipper where you can back your trailer up, unhook from it, and this thing will just lift the whole trailer up like this, and everything will dump out, kind of like how a dump trailer is. So we didn't get that luxury, so what we had to do was back up to a big pit in the ground that they dug out, and we had to get back there and just roll them off. And man, them things were heavy, but I actually enjoyed that job. They wanted you to keep your face shaven because if you ever needed to wear a respirator, you had to be able to. So, and I didn't like that because I love my beard, and I've always loved my beard. So trying to keep it cut, I would always get yelled at for it growing out too far because I just never kept up on it. That was also the place I ever got my first and only ticket I ever got in a semi. And that was for turning down a road that had a weight limit on it. It was a 6,000 pound weight limit. And what's crazy is I was in a semi, a tractor trailer with a sleeper, and only had one pallet on the trailer. But it still ended up being like 37,000 pounds gross that I was. So it ended up being over a $5,000 ticket. I didn't have to pay it because the rule there was if you're ever overweight and you get a ticket, the company pays for it. But my boss was not happy about that. I'm surprised he didn't fire me for that. But I guess I was a good worker, so he was a little bit lenient. But that was a crazy situation that luckily I didn't get fired over. Going back to the first job I had was the very first like damage I ever caused, which was I was delivering to this hospital, and there was a dumpster next to me, and the dumpster had the ratchet binder on it, like what flatbeds use, and it was sticking out, so it was sticking out this way from the dumpster. And when I went to leave, my trailer caught that binder and ripped a giant gash in it. But it also pulled that dumpster out. It wasn't a dumpster, it was a trash compactor. It pulled it out, they said it was like 10 feet, 10, 15 feet. Broke a bunch of hydraulic lines. This was at night, so I didn't even know that it happened. I didn't feel like any tugging or resistance whenever I pulled out. At least I don't remember. But they called me later in the day and asked if I hit something at the hospital. Like, no. And sure enough, I did. And there was a giant, like, I don't know, 2-foot gash in the side of the trailer. But, yeah, that was crazy. But EnviroServe, I messed up a door once, a swing door on a dry van. I was putting placards on while I was getting loaded, and I forgot to hook. Like, I unhooked the door, so I was in between my trailer and another trailer in the dock. I unhooked my door and opened it a little bit so I could put the placard on. I forgot to hook it back. So when I went to pull out, the door opened up, caught the trailer next to me, and bent my door. So I couldn't shut it, and it was a big deal. But rookie mistakes. It was still I think I was only trucking for a year at that point. But I ended up staying there for about 9 months. Then I left and went to a company called ECM Transport. They're the sister company to Pitt, Ohio. And what we basically did there was just the truckload stuff that Pitt, Ohio wouldn't take. So Pitt, Ohio would take like the smaller couple pallets here, a couple pallets there. We would take anything that was like over 10,000 pounds as a shipment. EnviroServe. I got paid $22 an hour there. And I probably worked a normal 10, 12 hours a day there. At ECM, I think I was also $22 an hour. But I left there after 3 months because I wasn't getting a lot of hours. I was only getting like 40 to 50 hours a week, which wasn't good. So I wasn't making a lot of money. So I had to leave there. From there, I went to the place that I was at the longest. Like, I've never been at a trucking company longer than this one, which was Keenan Advantage Group, KAG. They started out as a company called Dedicated Transport, but KAG bought them a couple months after I started working there. What I did there when I started out was I had this run. This was a regional job. When I first started it was going to be regional. So what I did there was I started out doing a run that went from Worcester, Ohio, which is at a Gojo plant, like the Gojo soap, and it went to Indianapolis. I ran that Sometimes I would go from Worcester to Pleasant Prairie, Wisconsin. And then eventually, by the end of that, I was running to Iowa every week. Um, but that job paid me. That was my first job I ever had a guarantee. That was 1,300 guaranteed, which was pretty good for it being a consistent pay. And then I could make more than that if I ended up driving more miles that they normally plan for. Um, so the KAG bought them out. I ended up doing local stuff for Gojo. Just going from terminal to terminal. They had a few in Ohio that I would go to. Then that's where I learned how to be a tanker, like how to pull tankers. I started pulling ethanol, and that switched up my pay to where I was getting paid. I don't know the exact numbers on that, but it was a lot more than 1,300 a week, and I think they were messing up paying me, because if they had me do a trailer move, they would pay me a bunch for that, and whoever was running the accounting over there was really messing up. But there were times where I was getting $2,500 or more a week just doing stupid trailer moves, like pulling a trailer out of a dock and parking it, or go grabbing an empty one and putting it in the door. But there was that mixed in with the tanker work. But eventually, that was during COVID, and COVID died off. So, Gojo was making a lot of money with their hand sanitizer when COVID started. And then once that all stopped, Gojo stopped needing so much ethanol, because that's what they used to make the hand sanitizer. So they asked me, like, you can either, go back to your 1,300 guarantee job, or we can switch you over to doing regional tanker work, pulling latex. And I'm like, you know what? I like tanker. Let's do that. So I ended up doing that for a couple of months, but they were running me so hard that I was never getting home like I was supposed to. So I ended up leaving that job eventually. Then I went to probably the worst place I've ever been to. Well, it is the worst place I've ever been to, which is a place called Tradition Transportation. They're out of Angola, Indiana. That's where I did my first ever lease purchase. And it is as bad as everybody says it is. I got this beautiful blue W900 with the studio sleeper. I felt on top of the world. But it was nothing but problems, especially being in the shop a lot. My fuel tank was rotated to a bad spot, so I ran out of fuel a couple times. Even though the gauge said I was on like a quarter or down to like an eighth, I still ran out of fuel. I had to have them rotate the fuel tank back to where it was supposed to be. But I was a lease purchase, so I had to pay for that stuff. It's crazy, but I did. Then eventually the EGR cooler went out in the truck, and that's pretty much where I called it, because I sat for a few days waiting for the part to come in, and I was just losing so much money, and it just wasn't worth it. So I quit there. Then I went to Penske Logistics, and that was probably one of my top 3 favorite places I've been to. I was only at Tradition for about 3 months. That's all I lasted. There I was making 82% of the load, but the loads didn't pay that much, so it is what it is. That company eventually went out of business. The owner, I guess, got arrested and stuff. It was pretty crazy. But I went to Penske. I was It was probably the easiest job ever. I started out. It started out as Black Horse. I was doing deliveries for Aldi, the Aldi stores. Um, then Penske bought out Black Horse. They were already in the process of that when I started. Then I got switched over to doing this local run that was dedicated. It was from Youngstown, Ohio to Mechanicsburg, PA. You take an empty trailer out there, do a drop and hook for a full one, bring it back, drop it, go home. It was one of the easiest jobs I've ever done. It paid pretty well too. I was getting about $1,500 a week for that. I only worked 4 days a week too, which is pretty crazy. If I worked the fifth day on a Friday, if I needed to cover for somebody, it'd be like an extra $400. It was pretty nice. I did that for a year and a half. Then I left because I saw a spot at Coonley Brothers out of Newberry, Ohio. I called the guy and he said they were paying $2,000 to $4,000 a week, being regional. I'm like, oh, well, let's go do that. I already have my hazmat and tanker, so. Plus, their trucks are badass. They're all straight pipe trucks, cat engines, long noses. So, it sounded all good and great, but in the end, it really wasn't. I was only there for 2 months. I was in the shop a lot. They gave me a truck that didn't have any air conditioning, and I started working there in like June. They sent me down to Baton Rouge one day. It was like 90 degrees. I had no AC. That was brutal. But yeah, there was a lot of times where they didn't have anything going on. So I just wasn't making the money that I was promised there. So I left. And I went to this over-the-road company. The first over-the-road company I've ever been to. They're called Dynamic Transit. At Coonley, I was making 22 or 23% of the load there. So I was only making like $1,600 a week, and that's if I worked a full week. So it didn't pay what they said, but I never really went over the road either. Like I went to that New Orleans one, but that was it. Like I never really went over the road. Then I did go to an over-road place, like I said, the Dynamic Transit. They were paying 70 cents a mile. Or no, 65 cents a mile if you had your hazmat tanker. It was 70 cents a mile for every hazmat load you pull. But prior to Dynamic, I've only ever been to like the Mississippi River. I've been to almost all the states on the east side of the U.S., but never went west until I started here. And then my first run went up to Oregon, and I'm like, oh, here we go. So I had a 389 Peterbilt there, 10-speed. That was nice. But it was pulling reefer trailers. I went up to Oregon, and it was the first time I ever got to take my son with me out on the road. So we took 2 weeks, and we went up to Oregon and back, and then down to Georgia and back, and went home for those 2 weeks. But from there, I left there because it was over the road. I thought I could handle it, but with me and my family, it wasn't working out. So I missed them too much. They missed me too much. So now I have 2 kids, so it's even worse. So I ended up leaving there after 3 months. And I'm here at Big Blue Trucking, which is a dump truck. The first place I've ever been that did dump truck work. I haul furnace coke from the coke plant in Warren to Cleveland, Ohio, to the steel mill. I do 3 trips a day, 5 days a week, and I make like 15 to $1,600 a week. If I work a 6 day, I get an extra $700, which is crazy. So And this place, it's the easiest job I ever did. There's really no labor in it at all. But I've been here for 6 months now, so I think I'll be here for a while. I passed that that 3 month threshold. So I think I'll be here for a while. Yeah, really good benefits, close to home. I'm never more than an hour away from the house. So really good people here. I plan to stay here for a long time. But trucking really did change my entire life. I was at a dead end warehouse job. I wasn't gonna. It was 4 years, and all I ever did was went down in hourly rate. I started out working there doing a second shift, making like $13.50 something an hour. But I went to first shift, and my pay got cut at $1.50, and I'm like, well, it was fun because I got to work with my brother, but in the end they fired me, so there's nothing I can do about it. But I'd love to one day own my own truck and maybe start my own fleet, but I don't think now is a really good time for that. But yeah, me and my family are happy with where I'm at now. I have no will or want to leave this place like I have the others. So, just gonna stick it out here. Hopefully, I'm always a truck driver. Or, if I ever make it big on YouTube, I can start my own fleet, which would be cool. But I never want to get out of trucking. I want to stay in it forever. I don't want to drive forever. I'm about getting sick and tired of driving. But if I can, make this YouTube thing work out and make enough money to where I can, start my own business doing this, I'd much rather do that. Because I want to be home with my kids, watch them grow up. I know I'm local, I'm home every night, but I also work the weekends here, so that kind of sucks. I never get, a full day home with the kids unless it's like a holiday or something, which the holiday would have to fall on a Thursday or Friday because I don't get holidays off here either. So trucking can be brutal, but it can be very, very rewarding. Just, if you want to be a truck driver, keep your head down. Learn the business as much as you can. Keep your record clean. I've never gotten into an accident. I've never failed a drug test or anything like that. Keep your license clean, and you can do anything you want here in this career. So, thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers so I can monetize this channel. And just keep going from there and there. Try to get to 1 million. But thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one. Peace out.